Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Chisholm. I host a variety of podcasts and things, but today I'm doing one that's really special to me and a bunch of people that are in my circle. As many of you know, if you know me at all, you know that I am a gigantic fan of David Letterman. I have loved him since I was a young boy. I'm 44 years old right now. I think since I was about 7 or 8 years old, I've been a huge fan of his. Many of you who do know me know my big tale of seeing him 1 month before he finished his broadcast run and getting my picture taken with the New York Times photographer, with Dave making fun of me before the show and things like that. That's another story we can talk about for another time. But in that, I have always been on the path to find other like-minded individuals who are big David Letterman fans, and not only that. If I ever encounter the opportunity to meet somebody who has been a part of Dave's empire and the legacy that he has built, the broadcasting legacy that he has built, I jump at that chance. And we have found that. I've been a part of David Letterman fan groups for a long time. And, many times those groups, we change memories, we tell stories. But sometimes something special happens. And I get to encounter somebody who has a relationship with the show or with Dave that is a little bit closer than just one of being an enthusiast. And we have that today. We have a gentleman that we're going to interview today named Arthur Kelly. Arthur Kelly has worked for David Letterman for Worldwide Pants for the last 15 years of its existence. But not only that, he had, for whatever reason, serendipitously, had happened to him what a handful of people have had happen that are in Dave's employ. You think of Stephanie or Chris Elliott over the years, or Larry Bud Melman, where somebody who is on the periphery of Dave's bubble or his sphere, that actually gets brought in to become a character on the show. Arthur Kelly, during the Late Show portion of Dave's legacy, was brought in as an employee. For some reason, was identified as a pseudo lookalike for NFL coach Mike Singletary, and in that there was this comedy bit that germinated and bloomed into this piece of what I would call a legacy of the Late Show. And we are really excited to be talking none other to the one-man party himself, Arthur Kelly. Arthur, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk to me a little bit about yourself and your legacy on the Late Show. Thank you so much for doing that today, buddy.
You're quite welcome. Thank you, Jim, for having me.
You just got the fanboy part of me just lit up by calling me Jim. Thank you for that. Before we get into the actual bit and all of how that built up, let's talk a little bit about what you did you didn't work for CBS, you worked for Worldwide Pants, correct?
That's correct, yes. I was a Worldwide Pants employee.
Awesome. And through that 15 years, safe to say that you loved your time working for Worldwide?
Absolutely. Best job, hands down. Oh. So when I first came, they said, well, you're going to be the receptionist. You'll answer some phone calls. And so I said, well, this seems to be somewhat easy. I can do this. And it was fun because a lot of it was, people calling in complaints. And then I would find people calling in about things that were not really relevant to anything. I'll give an example.
Okay.
Sometimes people would call in and say, why is he wearing those white tube socks with a suit?
And my God, you would get those calls. They were gray socks, were they not? I think they were gray.
Well, yeah, they were like a bone colored, but they were saying they were white sweat socks. That he said, you wear those when you play basketball. I said, well, he's a fashion icon, so that's why he's wearing those socks. And then a lot of it was other things about complaints, like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And it just runs the gambit. But it was
so these are fans. These are fans that would call in and ask these questions.
Then people calling to speak to him,
Sure.
and all sorts of different things. But overall, it was fun. Sometimes it could be somewhat annoying because
Sure.
the person would call back, and then you have the same thing throughout the day with the same call from the same person. But other than that, wonderful job, wonderful people, great place. And I miss the big guy.
I can imagine you do. We all miss him, of course, from an entertainment or an insight a perspective, but you miss it in a different way. You got to be in that environment every single day. Other than some of the annoyances, and who knows, maybe we're part of some David Letterman fan groups online. Who knows? Maybe some of those hardcore fans are the ones who phoned in. I don't know.
Oh, but yeah, probably, yeah. They if they're going to dial the number, it's not working. So
no kidding.
No, because they changed the number.
So you worked on Dave's floor, right? So you would see him every day?
Yes, twice a day, going and coming, going down to do the show, and then coming back.
Did you ever ride in the elevator?
Yeah, once I had the pleasure of riding the elevator with him, and it was interesting. He was asking me where I lived, and I told him, and he wanted to. Dave is very detailed, so he wanted to know the demographics of the city and the population, and I had none of those answers, but I told him I'll get back to him.
So this is the part that I think people would be kind of fascinated to know. So you worked on his floor, you saw him twice a day. Where did the connection begin? When was the first time you did the Mike Singletary bit? Do you remember the year?
Okay, I'm going to just tell you exactly how it happened.
Okay.
So one day the writers came. I don't really know how it started. So the rumor says that someone was watching Monday Night Football and they saw Mike Singletary and they thought I'd look like him. So the writers one day, they approached me. They said, listen, we have a wonderful idea. We'd like you to be on the show. And I've been on the show before doing different skits. And I said, well, sure, I'll sign me up. And they said, well, we want you to play Mike Singletary. And I'm thinking, Mike Singletary, who's Mike Singletary? I had no idea who Mike Singletary was.
Right.
So, then they said, well, he was a Hall of Famer, football defensive guy for the Chicago Bears.
Yep.
And I know I know very little about football.
Sure.
Give you an example. Last year I was watching the Jets, and I kept saying to myself, when are they going to put Joe Namath in?
Yeah, let's bring in Joe. Why not? I mean, that guy knows how to get it done, right?
I'm so far behind with sports. I'm still thinking that Willie Mays plays for the Mets.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
Bobby Orr, with the Rangers. So
Bobby Orr with the Rangers. Bobby Orr with the Rangers. That's right. You're talking about a Canadian hockey guy.
So they went on to ask me about Mike Singletary.
Sure.
I said, well, never heard of the guy.
Yep.
So, well, we're going to show you a video. And I looked at him. I said, well, I guess we look similar, with the glasses.
Sure.
But I looked at his demeanor. And so they said, well, this is what we want you to do. And I'm thinking, well, fine, because I was thinking that was going to be like a pre-tape or something like that. And I'm thinking like, well, how is this going to work? They says, well, it's going to work. Well, you're going to do it live. And when I heard the word live, I said, oh, that's it. No good. I'm not the guy. And then after they convinced me that, it wouldn't be that bad, I said, well, how is this going to work? They said, you're going to do it with Dave. I said, no, that's out. I said, this is not going to work. I said,
okay, why? Let me stop you right there. Why suddenly the hesitation? When you found out that it was going to be with Dave, the guy that you see twice a day, what was the hesitation in you there? Is it just is it the high wire act of being broadcasting, live?
Well, yeah, being live. And then the thing is, I was fearful of making a mistake.
Okay.
And not doing well. So it was just my fear.
Okay.
So the thing is, they said, well, no, Art, you're going to be great. You're going to be fantastic. And I'm saying to myself, are they really serious? Or are they gagging on me?
Right.
So this is, well, we're going to have you do a rehearsal, and I did a rehearsal with one of the writers.
Yeah. On the stage or on your floor?
Well, it was done downstairs on the stage.
It was done on the stage. Okay.
So I did the rehearsal, and it says, well, later on when the actual taping is going to take place, you're going to do it down, with Dave.
Right.
Now, this is where I'm really pulling my hair out.
You're pulling your hair out already.
So I said, well, I told him, I said, don't expect much.
Right.
I'm going to give it a try. And so I was extremely nervous when I did the first one.
Sure.
And then after completing that, I saw the writers and some of the producers walking towards me. I said, "Oh, this is it. Oh, this is not the moment I've been looking for." And they said, "Oh, Art, it was fantastic."
Wow.
And they said, "He loved it." He who? They said, "Dave. He thought it was great." And I'm thinking to
Wow.
myself, what's going on here? Is this everybody here drunk and I don't know what's going on?
Right.
But that's me being insecure.
Of
And
course.
so
Now,
they said, "Well, we'd
I
like
want
for
to
you to
stop you
stay
here.
and do the second show."
Okay. Let me stop you
Am
right
I
here
going too
before you get
much?
to the second show. Okay. Because I know that a lot of enthusiasts would want me to ask this question. So how much during your job did you actually go down to the stage and to the set in your day-to-day life before this moment? Was it something that you did quite a bit, or when you actually went down to rehearse this time, was that, one of the first times in a while that you had been on the stage?
Well, yeah, that was because I very rarely went down on the stage because there was really no need. So
So
I was really needed up in the office.
So how did that
So
feel? Like, how did
and
that
then
feel walking out there, being on that place where you saw the set and all that? And I don't know which writer it was, if you could remember if it was Grossman or who it was that brought you down there. How did that feel when you were rehearsing? Did it feel magical? Did it feel weird? Did it feel like, oh, this is just another thing that I'm doing? What was the feeling of that
well,
like?
yeah, it was weird, and it was pretty much like, what am I really doing now? So but it was interesting. But I mean, like I said, I have no acting skills whatsoever. So I said, after doing the first show, because they aired two shows on, they did two shows on Thursday, and the second show would be aired on Friday.
Right.
So they said, we'd love for you to stay, and Dave wants you to do the second show.
Wow.
And that's why I almost collapsed, because I'm thinking to myself, I could barely get through the first show. And they think I'm good enough to come back and do the second show. They said, "We're going to put together a script." So and everything is, you don't have any time to really prepare. So
No.
they prepared a script real quick, and then they gave me the script. And between shows, I would go down and do a rehearsal. And I said, "Well, let's give it a go again." And I did the second show. And they said, "Wow, it was fantastic. He loved it." And I'm like,
I'm
"Shit,
blown away by this.
I'll run you out of business. It's up."
I'm blown away by this because it's like, every day you're going back and forth doing the same thing. You love your job, you love the environment, and suddenly this gets added to your plate. I don't want to go into things that aren't I don't want to go into no man's land where you don't want to talk about, but did did anything when it came to your pay, for example, change? Or is this just something that became part of your job description? Like, did you get paid as a performer to do this, or was it no? This is just instead of
Well,
answering
yeah,
the
yeah,
phones for
because it
this.
wasn't part of my job description.
Sure.
So the thing is, after like when I first started out, they explained to me that after a certain amount of appearances that you'd have to join the union.
Oh
So
wow.
what I did is, yeah. So what I decided to do is I joined after that. At that time, it was just after,
Yep.
and later on the two merged. So I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild and after. All
Are you
through.
still a member?
Yes, I'm still a member. I've been a
Outstanding.
member since 2009.
2009.
And my first appearance with Coach's Corner was 2008.
And I want to get to that because at the end of the day, you go on there, you are pretending to be Mike Singletary, you are saying all of these crazy things, and you do a rehearsal of it, and then Dave comes on and you do it live, and you're saying all of these bonker things with this strong personality, and it's just this incredible thing to the point where it starts to grow, and you get like Paul wrote a jingle for you, for example, and they call it Coach's Corner. As this is happening, how is it? How does it change your life? Do your friends and family, are they just freaking out around you as this is happening? And what did it do to were you getting
Well,
recognized on the
my
street?
friends and family, all they can see is that, are you getting more money? Can we borrow money from you? Can you give us money? So that it was nothing. that I could say they were very supportive of what I was doing. They were looking at the financial aspect of it all.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So
you're
that
on
was,
television.
they wanted the bottom line.
Can you give us? Yeah, yeah. So that was pretty much. But a few friends, they like, wow, I can't believe it. They said, wow, we expected you to be on America's Most Wanted, before any sort of comedy show.
Yeah, I
But
don't think being on, I
yeah,
don't
but it
think,
never changed my life.
sure,
Not at all.
sure. I don't think being on America's Most Wanted would get you any more money either. But at the end of the
Well, yeah,
day,
yeah, but yeah, that's as you can see, my comedic skills with that is not that great. But it was just a joke. But no, no, it would never affect me. The thing is, um, what I found was interesting is that when they added the music to it,
yes,
because before when I first started doing the Coach's Corner, and then I noticed I could hear that they had this Mike Singletary song going,
yes,
and when I heard that, my first thought was, is this a dream? Is this really happening? Are they adding a song to this?
yeah,
You know, I'm thinking that after the first few appearances, they said, well, that's enough of this. We're done with this guy.
sure.
Let him sit up in the corner and answer phones all day. But they felt it was worth, adding something to it.
Well,
And ironically, I'm going to tell you a real quick story if I can make it real quick.
please do.
When
Oh
Mike
God.
Singletary was fired from the 49ers,
Yeah.
people were calling me, like I was actually being fired. So that they were like, did you hear what happened to Mike Singletary? And I'm thinking like, well, what happened? They said he was fired. So I gathered that meant I was fired for, doing the Mike Singletary bit. And I said, well, I'm sorry to hear the guy got fired, but how does that affect me? I'll go back to my receptionist duties.
Right.
So, and then mysteriously, I thought, because I thought it was done and over after that.
Sure.
And when he went on to the other team,
yeah, the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings, I believe.
And the Vikings. So what happened was this is, well, we're going to bring the coach's corner back. And I just freaked out. I'm like, is this for real? I thought it was done after he was fired. Even before he was fired, I thought it was done. And then they brought it back, and that's when I went on to do the 49ers bit. I'm sorry, the Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating and it's exciting and it got a lot of mileage and there were so many bits on Dave's show that would be like one-offs, like what you were talking about. And this one here is one of those ones that turned into a legacy bit. What do you miss more? Do you miss do you miss the performance aspect of the job, or do you miss working just in the Ed Sullivan Theater? What do you miss more? Because you are a natural performer. Even listening to you now, you love to perform clearly, and I'm just curious as to what do you miss about it?
Well, I miss the staff, the people that I work with. They were great people.
Yeah.
And I also miss the performance of performing on the show, because I can hear the people laughing, and so that gives me the pleasure. I wasn't doing it for the money.
Right.
So once I started hearing the people laughing, that made me feel really good because I knew that I was doing well. So, because after doing it, the first time and I was being extremely nervous, and when I became comfortable with the character, I started adding more to it. So, and then the thing is, listening to the people laugh to my responses, that gave me a lot of joy.
It's an adrenaline rush.
Aspect of it all.
It's an adrenaline rush that I don't think that any being applauded in a live performance brings an adrenaline rush that is unlike any other. Would you agree with that?
Most definitely. Because once I hear the countdown, and then the stage manager, he says, "You're on."
Is that
so?
Biff?
At that point, no, there was another gentleman.
Okay.
That was a stage manager, because Biff was a stage manager on Dave's side, and I had another stage manager for myself.
So let's talk.
I was in a different location. I wasn't actually on the stage.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Like, paint the picture.
Once you hear that.
So paint the picture for the viewers. Okay. So Dave, we know where Dave's desk is. We know where Paul is. We know when you look over and you see Barbara and Rob and all those guys on their little podium. Did they set up a green screen and you would be in front of the green screen on the stage?
Yes, absolutely. I
Nope.
was in a location they call Cue Card Alley.
Okay.
Now, Cue Card Alley is where you had the cue card guys writing the cue cards and rehearsing with different actors, with the cue cards. So
Right.
that's where my performance was in Cue Card Alley.
But in full view of the entire audience, though, still.
Well, yeah, but I couldn't see the audience, but they could see me
I hear
because
you.
there was a
Okay.
camera there and everything else. So I was in a different location and it had the backdrop of the green screen and all that wonderful stuff, which made
Oh,
it seem like I was actually at a football field. And
right.
I never really watched my performances
You didn't.
before. So it took me a couple. I think when I first started to look at my performances is when I started putting my reel together. And
Really?
actually, what I would before that, what I would do, like a punk, I would come home and turn the television on, and go into another room and listen to it. And so
Really?
when I heard the
Why would you
people
go into
laughing
another
at my
room?
responses,
Oh,
because I don't like
interesting.
looking at myself.
Okay.
I was petrified of looking at myself. So, and you would say, well, Jesus, you're such a handsome guy, but,
I was just
um,
thinking that right there.
well, thanks. I could read minds too. So what happened was I would just listen to it.
Right.
I would just listen to it, and then when I heard the people laughing, I said,
Mhm.
wow, this might have a little something to it.
Wow.
So during my last days, I put my reel together, and I said, well, I'm going to watch this. So I got the bourbon out, and I took a couple slugs, and I watched the videos, and I said, wow, this is not too bad. I could see why they brought me back, maybe,
Sure.
and I was comfortable with it.
The well, first and foremost, from a viewer standpoint, I can tell you that my favorite bits on Letterman were the ones where he would kind of blur the lines a little bit, and he would make the level of comfort turn in from comfortable to awkward. And one thing that you were really good at doing, if you think about TV shows like maybe The Office or Arrested Development, where there would be things that were said or not said, or a question would be asked, and then the answer would be one that was extremely, you were answering a question, but a different question or something. You did a really good job of creating that kind of that feeling. And I guess my question for
Well,
you,
yeah. So yeah, because the thing is, the things they gave me were words. So the
right?
words you have to translate into, it's all about responses,
Sure,
and facial expressions. So
sure.
so that's what I worked on. When I came home, sometimes I would think about. I take a script that I had before and go over it and
Yep,
and and see what I could do.
yep.
So and practice to get an idea of how I could make the character better.
Right.
So
Would
um,
would you
yeah, and
actually
that's
ever
how I was able to.
would you use words that Mike Singletary actually used? Like, I mean, you would repeat like Omaha, 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 or hit that sled, or you would repeat
Yeah, yeah,
things.
well, yeah. Reverse and Doris and yeah, a lot of it was yelling
Taurus.
and ranting and stuff like that.
Yes. Were any of
And
those
so
yours? Were they all
I
from the
did one
writers?
scene. Yeah, yeah, the writers they were the ones who put it, wrote the script. So what I would do is just take whatever they gave me
Yeah,
and try. I could take anything that somebody gives me and make it funny.
sure.
It's just words, but I could just create it and flip it and make it interesting or funny, depending on what it is. Um, so the thing is, what my point was going to say. Oh, I get so
So
excited,
were any of the
I lose
words
my
ever
train of thought.
yours? Did you ever improv any of it, or was it always what they gave you?
Oh, one time I did. So
Yeah.
one time when we were doing a segment, and so I was doing my lines off cue cards because
Right.
that's how you did it in television. Yeah, and so um, I noticed that uh, Dave, he went off script, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what is he doing? You know, so I figured, well, I got to do what he's doing,
Sure.
and so I just improvised a little something there, you know. But yeah, I went off a couple, once or twice.
That must have been exhilarating. It's like good jazz where you're just kind of going off and doing your own thing. And I would imagine that Dave would get a kick out of seeing how you would react if he did go off script.
Well, yeah. I guess it was one of I guess a slight test to see, what how I would respond. But
Sure.
there's different ways with comedy. So the thing is, if I had nothing to do, to say, I can make a facial expression just standing there looking crazy, and people would find that funny.
Sure.
So but the thing is, I was able to come up with something, to fill in the blanks,
Right.
so to speak.
And that's one thing as I kind of started going back and reliving some of these memories and watching many of the episodes that you were on, you did a really good job of knowing sometimes when not to say something and just kind of look at the camera and then say Doris or say something else or move on to something else completely. Did the timing of that, was that there right from the start, or did it evolve, and do you feel you got better at it as time went by?
Oh, I got better when time went on. So the
Yeah.
first time we went out, I was doing it with one of the writers, Bill Sheft.
Oh, Bill. Yep.
And yeah, and it was horrible because you could hear him in the background, and me repeating what he was saying. So it really looked bad, you
Right.
know. So yeah, and then later on they said, well, let's keep going, and I said, okay, I'll keep going, let's give it a go.
Right.
But after I became, somewhat comfortable, I was always nervous because I want to make sure that I'm doing it the right way.
Right.
So but the thing is, I became more. I could see through my performances that as I did it more, I became more comfortable
Right.
with doing the character.
Right. And that makes sense. So here's my question. So you start working for Worldwide Pants in 2000, and maybe we can start a segment for this for the group called Tales from the Late Show or something like that. I don't know. I'm just thinking on my feet here. But you start working there. You're there for 9 years. You kind of get as comfortable as you can get in your situation. You see Dave twice a day. Suddenly, you're part of one of Dave's bits. Now, as you see Dave twice a day, once you became part of the bit, did the dynamic or the relationship change? Did Dave ever say anything to you as he walked by? Did he ever mention the bit? Or was it just business as
No, but
usual?
one
And
time, this is very interesting.
yes.
I would never expect him to say this to me at all.
Okay.
So after I did the show, he would come up. He'd say, "Great job," and I did. He'd always compliment me, saying I did a good job.
Sure.
But one time in particular stood out because when he came up, he said, I don't know, the show wasn't probably going the way he wanted, and he actually, I'll never forget this. He said, "You saved the show,"
Whoa.
and I
What?
was like, "I saved the show. I'm more likely to run you out of business than save the show." But I guess because apparently I must have did a good job,
Right.
you know. But that I thought that was very kind of him to say that because he didn't have to, you
Well,
know.
he would position you after the monologue before the first guest, correct?
Well, sometimes it would be after the first guest or the second guest.
Right.
It depends on where you're going to be placed. So the thing is, and it's a time situation. So if
Right.
he had a guest on and he wanted to spend more time with the guest, then I would be bumped.
Right. So
But
you know what
I
it's
was
like to
only
be
bumped
bumped by
maybe a
David
couple.
Letterman.
Well, yeah, so I was only bumped a couple times, you know. Um, but listen, I was so thankful for the opportunity to come out there to perform and make people laugh. That
I
that gave me the biggest thrill is to hear people laughing.
Right.
You know, and that made me feel that I did the job well. And then, of course, the support of my colleagues. They said, "Wow, Artie, that was great," because nobody ever knew that I could do it. Even I didn't know it.
Right.
You know, so that's all I
What
can say about that.
what a testament. And I mean, this is kind of our first conversation. We're testing out some technical things and all this stuff here. So I want to make, and I also want to be very respectful of your time. I am sure that this will ignite questions in other people and things like that. But before we kind of get to wrapping up, um, you started there working in an administrative role for Worldwide. This happens to you in '09. You just talk about the high, how cool it feels to perform, and you've got the bug now. You want, and you're still part of the union. You want to still keep performing, don't you?
Absolutely, yes. So what I've done after I left the show, I took a part-time job, and then
Yep.
I signed under a couple of casting agencies, and
Right.
I worked as a background actor.
Okay.
And then in 2018, I had a medical condition, so that kind of sidelined me.
Right.
But now I'm open for opportunity. I can also do radio voiceovers, but those are areas I'm looking to adventure in. But I'm pretty much open to opportunity.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at now.
And stand up something you've ever decided to play with at all, or is that
Oh yeah, the stand up. Oh yeah. So the stand up. Because every time, for years, people would always say, "Well, you're very funny, very entertaining. Why don't you try stand up?"
right?
And once again, fear.
Sure.
It's like, well, if what happens if it doesn't work out? And they're saying, well, how will you know if it doesn't work out if you don't try it?
Hmm.
So one day I looked at a couple local places that have open mic night.
Yep.
And so I said, well, I'm going to sign up. And I signed up, and I was, once again, I had no material, nothing, zero.
You went up and
So,
improv a set.
yeah. So the thing
Wow.
is, I signed up, and I had nothing, no material whatsoever. That no jokes I can come up with or whatever.
Right.
So, and after I signed up, I said, well, why did I do that for? This is going to be a disaster.
Right.
So, and so I went on, because this is my first time. It was in September, and I went on, and I just started making jokes about myself,
Sure.
and I noticed people started to laugh. So once I saw that, it made me dig deeper and deeper and dig deeper, and it was fun. And so when I came off stage, people in the audience were high fiving, saying it was great, fantastic. And the younger kids, they were asking me like, "Well, how long have you been doing stand up?" And I told them, I said, "Well, tonight is my first night." And they were
Wow.
like, "Wow, that's cool, man. Wow." That boosted me a little bit to see the younger kids digging what I'm doing.
Yes.
So, but with the virus thing now, everything is closed, and I can't do much with that. But
Right.
I look forward to hopefully, going back out there again.
Well, I can personally say, and I think I can speak for many members of who are going to see this. I hope that you publicize that well, and I will do whatever I can anytime, whether it's within the group or outside of that. When you do start performing, we would definitely love to support you in that and help you with that. And I hope that you do keep following it, because clearly you've got the bug, and you clearly know how to perform, and people respond to your performance, and it's very exciting to see this happening for you as this COVID thing. Hopefully hopefully we're on the back end of it and it's going to come to a close. But I just appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing and have done, and talking about your legacy with Dave and the show. Would you be willing to, if people had questions and wanted to hear some more stories, again, positive stories of things that you encountered working for Worldwide Pants, would you be willing to talk about that again with us?
Absolutely, most definitely. Mike, I'd like to thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it. This is the only invitation I've had since I've left the show. When nobody calls, nobody writes.
Wow.
Even the host himself has. I think he must have forgotten about me. But
Oh, and Dave is really well known for reaching out to people all the time. He's really well known for that, isn't he?
well, yeah. So I guess I have to get on the list with so many others. You know. But when I saw a photo of him after he left the show,
Yep.
with the beard,
Yep.
and then I burst into tears when I saw him with the beard. And then
Good.
I got the good book out, and I started to read where they said, one day he will come and walk amongst us. And I said, there he is, Moses. Moses has returned to walk amongst us, you know. And I had an emotional moment.
You worked for Moses for all those years and didn't even know it.
I worked for Moses, and he led me to the promised land.
He led you to the promised land on the stage of the Ed Sullivan Theater. Arthur Kelly, I can't tell
That's
you how
it.
grateful I am. Thank you so much. And we will do this again, I'm sure. Thank you so much.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Thank you very much for having me. And can I just finish with one of my closing lines from the show?
Yes, sir.
Your local news starts now.
Enough to be said there. Thank you, Arthur Kelly. This has been, I think we're going to call it Tales from the Late Show. Who knows? But thank you very much. I'm Mike Chisholm. That was Arthur Kelly, star of the show. Thank you so much. And peace, love.